Hi, and welcome to the Spiritual Principles Made Practical podcast. Today, we've got a special treat, Gina Cavalier. She's a healer, and specifically what she heals is she helps you remember who you truly are in all of the power, creativity, magnificence, and brilliance that is. And that's something that is important to me, and I think it's important to everybody, whether they're conscious of it or not. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how it is you came to do what you do and what it is you do.
Well, Scott, I just want to say thank you for having me on and co-creating this beautiful time together. I also want to send out a big hug to anybody out there who needs it because, we who doesn't love a hug? Just to kind of set the energy right. But I was in entertainment for 25 years and I loved movies, and that they were my educator when I was a young kid. So I always dreamt about going into the movies. And I felt really, disconnected from my path and I had childhood wounding that hadn't been healed. And I just kept drawing the wrong people towards me. And it just was living in kind of a negative life cycle. And I just, would go in and out of suicidal ideation because of that. And one day I just kind of decided I'm either going to go one way or the other way. And I decided to commit to healing myself. And it was a really hard journey. It was very long. And I got really into different principles and energy healing, which was great, to learn about energy and how it affects you and how it can make you feel better or good or awful. And giving me that tools to put something in my hands that I could control. And then I just went down that road. And 15 years later, I felt incredibly healed from any potential suicidal ideation. I can't even hold a suicidal thought. It's like it's been programmed out of me.
Nice.
And I wanted everybody to know that it's not like your eye color, like it's going to stay around forever. And that's something I didn't know. I thought it was a part of me and was always going to be a part of me. And when life events would come, that might be a divorce or a losing of a job, I was scared for myself, thinking, oh gosh, here the cycle is going to come again. I'm going to get really scared and depressed and feeling like self-pity and it would trigger it. And then I would definitely go down that route and I would have a few months of horrible, suffering. And I don't have to experience that anymore because life is about conflicts and I have toolkits now. Conflict comes sometimes on a daily basis at times, especially when you have a book about healing suicidal ideation. And some people don't like that. I don't know why, but you just have to stay. Yeah. So I have tools though to combat that stuff. So that's what I'm working on.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And I mean, and hats off to you because your story is undoubtedly going to help lots and lots of people, and so many of the issues that people have, they are embarrassed to put out front and deal with. And you doing it creates that circumstance where people say, well, if she did it, you know what, maybe I can too, at least, try.
That's what I've found, just people I've met have come up to me and talked to me. They want to share their story with me and they feel safe with sharing their story with me because I've been in the same place that they have been. And also they get excited to say, oh, I could have a life where I never have to have that again. It's not, and it's an identity that I could actually leave behind and it gives them hope. And then they want to work on that because nobody likes to be in that position, feeling that way. No.
So in my spiritual journey, which has been a conscious practice of mine for over 40 years, which makes me older than most people. I've really found meditation to be very helpful. And my definition of spiritual growth is accepting and aligning that which is true at ever deeper and more profound levels.
Yes.
And so I'm interested to hear about, what did you do to reach deeper and to connect with yourself and to come to realize the sort of amazing being that you are?
Thank you so much. Meditation is amazing, but when you've had a lot of trauma, to be honest, it's hard. because sitting still for 30 minutes just sounds like a torture, right? And your mind is so powerful, this computer that we have. So for me, and you have to kind of find what works for you. Some people like Kundalini because it moves fast. Some people, well, for me, I went and trained in actually kind of being psychic and learning about energy. And to get set up to do the rest of the class, we were required to do 30 to 40 minutes of meditation in the beginning. And I would sit in that chair and I would just, oh my God, like, oh, really? And then over the practice, and this was like a class that I was in for 5 years, 3 times a week. It was at college. It wasn't just a weekend certificate program thing. It was dedicated. We had to do 3 free readings a week. I mean, it was really like being in service, almost like, to people.
Yeah.
And really sitting there and learning how to be calm and to ground my energy and to let things flow. Let me read my energy. Let me communicate with different things in a way that was, I could actually experience what was happening to me. Because if you don't get to that calm place, you really can't transform it. So however you need to get there, whatever is your thing, find it. And it can be just becoming a surfer. I always tell people, have you ever met a depressed surfer? Most of them are pretty happy. And it's because when you are in that amount of nature, the whole body that is our aura and our energy field sloshes off all the negative and dark energy that's in your space, and you really get back to your highest vibration that's possible for you at the moment. So maybe if you can't sit for a while, try doing something, at first, like walking in nature, and then gradually get to being, sitting and being in your own space, because that is where all the beautiful lessons come, is when you do get to the point, and believe me, I understand it can be hard, but when you do get to the point where you can sit for 30 minutes, that's where you're going to actually find your intuition and your answers, and you're going to start to hear yourself. You're going to start to feel your own vibration and your own heartbeat and connect more to your soul. You need to find that quietness. And that's sort of why I think a lot of kids are actually suicidal. The fastest age range right now is 10 to 14, because they don't know how to stop and they don't know how to put the phone down, and they're not going to find solace in the phone. And so they need to have these practices to save their lives.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell people, exactly what you said. Find what works for you, right? I mean, I have a friend and he relaxes by going to movies and falling asleep watching a movie. You know what? Okay, it works for him, so that nothing else matters. And as a longtime meditator over decades, I'll tell you that the amount of time that you spend meditating isn't the point. It's the space that you get to. And you describe that space, and it can take you a long time or short time or however you get to that. But it's touching that space and learning how to open up to that space more easily and more frequently. And so for me, in between every task, I try and take just, even if it's only like a minute or 30 seconds, because I've been doing this a long time, is to touch that space.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay.
I feel like when you get that, all meditators have that like first time where they got to go to, how runners talk about a runner's high that they get at a certain point. There's a meditation high that you can get to, and you might have a vision that just blows your mind, or you might have a feeling that like is, transcended. And when you get your first experience like that, man, it is like you become a kind of a semi-addict. You're like, can I have that a little bit more? And you don't get them all the time. Nobody that I know gets them every single time. But it's, that it's possible though. And you will be shown. I can remember my first time was when I was in a Hindu temple, and I was meditating for like 3 days, and I had the greatest experience in my life. And this was a long time ago, but I felt like I went out of my body and literally was flying around the planets with no body, just flying. I could just see my eyes. And I got to go over to Saturn, and I could put my hand out and I could feel the rings around Saturn vibrating through my hand. I could watch them, and I could look around and see the sun and the stars. And I was there. I mean, I literally felt like I was there. And when I popped back down to my body. I was like, I mean, and it was no medication, no drugs, no, psychedelics. And
Yeah.
I could go there.
Yeah.
Like that was like, okay, this is amazing. This is, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true is that once you experience that space, you never forget.
Yeah.
You never forget.
Yeah.
And people, I love the phrase where it says, people believe everything that they experience. And so if you experience it, then that's real. Well,
That's true.
one of the things that, I wanted to kind of dive into you with is that I'm focused on experiencing being one with all people. I mean, it's easy to talk to you and identify, and it's like, because it's like, we come from kind of the same place. But as I get stronger, I'm able to identify, relate to, and connect more deeply with more people. And I'm trying to get to the place where I relate on a much deeper level and a more ongoing level with everyone and everything that is. And one of the things I do public speaking, and one of the things that happens is occasionally I'll be doing a speech and I'll feel like I'm disconnected with the audience. And I'll reach in deeper into myself and connect deeper with myself and listen to myself more fully, and then come out with whatever that is, unjudged. And because I know that if I'm deeply connected to the essence of who I am, I'm deeply connected to everyone else. And I think that that's got to be part of what you're trying to help people with in terms of suicide, in the respect that pretty much everybody that commits suicide feels disconnected.
Right. Well, I'm kind of in this weird position because I'm a little bit of a rebel. Okay. I have a background of almost, punk rock, and, I'm a little bit of a rebel. And why I'm saying that is because I still find that there's places for you to express frustration and even a little bit of anger, and not be a doormat. And if someone is actually bullying you, it's not like you have to, you can still come from the place of love, but have your boundary and saying, I'm not going to be bullied by you anymore, and getting into that place, because that's what I'm having to deal with a lot lately. And people automatically assume I'm just going to be, I'm not Gandhi. I'm not that. There's different parts of people like that. But I actually think healthy boundaries and are really, really important, and bringing people in as much as possible through love, but also standing up for yourself and not being a doormat, and embracing everybody as much as possible. I know that sounds a little different than.
No, I'm on board with you 100%.
Okay.
I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, including anger. Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these people's suffering, the reason why I'm saying that is they're afraid that nobody's going to understand them. And to the point where it's like, can't I be angry? I have to be this flower child and happy all the time and in the light all the time, and being floaty and not being able to express myself. And I'm kind of the other way. It's like every emotion on the Richter scale is important for us to process in certain quantities, because we might have something we are angry about. We have to look at it, and we have to, so I kind of want to embrace all of it. And, if you're having a bad day, go ahead and do it in a healthy way, vocalize it. We don't have to sit in it. And that's, I relate it to like a tea kettle. When you know that it's been on too long and it just starts to jump around, we have to let the air out a little bit. And so we got to find spaces where, somebody can be frustrated with us for a minute. It doesn't mean that we have to go to hate after that.
Right.
It doesn't mean because they voiced an opinion that's not the same as yours that we have to immediately throw them in a corner and now we're separate. Because what's happening with a lot of people is we're feeling the separation of humanity. And that's what's making a lot of people disconnected even more. They're disconnected in their own life, but then they're seeing this community separating. And it's really hard for especially someone suffering, this could be the last thing that they could deal with, is watching the community fall down. And, you know, we're in an election year and a lot of things going on with that. And, you know, it's 911 that we come together, even if our beliefs are different. But, you know, we don't want to see, do you want to see someone hurt themselves? Of course you don't. So then think about that before you communicate, you know, bullying or harsh words, especially on online. I see so much online bullying. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, and as you say, there's an appropriate and a healthy way to express anger. I mean, I'm a big door slammer. So when, you know, no one's around, and I'll take that car door, and boy, man, it slams hard, you know, or I'll go outside and I'll throw my keys, and, you know, or I'll do,
Yeah.
you know, I'll do something that's not hurting other people. It's not destroying any of my relationships. It's not going to get me arrested. But, you know, I've got to like,
that would be a rebel. That'd be a rebel getting arrested. Yeah.
well,
I'm
going to try and avoid that. Well, one of the things that I do, I mean, and I'm, you know, trying to be more and more active politically. And I have a really good friend who's on the opposite political spectrum that I am.
Okay.
And we go to lunch, you know, probably once or twice a month, because we're good friends. We agree on pretty much everything other than politics. But we always make sure that we have a political discussion as part of our get together.
Good for you.
And we always, 100% of the time, 100% of the time, we always understand one another's point of view. 95% of the time, we end up agreeing. And when we don't agree, we realize that we rank our priorities differently.
Mm.
So, you know, I rate character higher than I rate policy.
Mm-hmm.
And he rates policy higher than he rates character. Okay. You know, I can accept that you rate policy higher than you rate character, and I'm the other way around. And that is the source of, you know, kind of our, you know, difference in that respect, you know, but it's not acrimonious in any way, you know. I mean, it's not, you know, and I feel like at least I'm putting out into the world a example of, you know, like how we can differ politically and still communicate effectively and appreciate one another's points. And I've learned a lot from him and changed some of my views, and the same with him, you know, because it's not been a threatening, I'm going to force you kind of thing.
Yeah, and I always go back to, you know, I had a kind of a difficult conversation with somebody yesterday. And when I came up to them and I said, look, I respect you. I have respect for you. I actually do. So I want you to know that before we go into this conversation. And that I really saw the energy in that person change, just like, it just, you know what I mean? Just
I know exactly what you mean.
And I love that word, because everybody wants to feel respected, no matter who you are. You know, we want to feel heard. We want to feel respected. So you can start a lot of conversations with that, and it's all energy, right? And then you kind of, because you do, you know, that's the problem. We need to deal with conflicts. We have conflicts almost every single day, small ones, big ones, all different ones, right? And the way we handle conflicts is it is so important as a community that we all practice conflict resolution in the healthiest way manner possible, with still having our voice, still speaking our mind. And, you know, and what I find is people don't like to deal with conflict at all. They'd rather go behind the scenes and do something behind the scenes where they don't actually have to look at the person in the face and speak their mind. But I swear, especially when you do it, even on a Zoom like this, all of a sudden you see tears in the person's eyes, or you see that you're affecting them. And then you go, oh my gosh, I'm actually hurting this person, or I actually care about this person. This is why I met them in the first place, or they're my teacher or whatever. And then it helps you get to a better place. That's what online bullying is so bad, because it's faceless in a way. People think that they can throw this and it doesn't hurt anybody, so they can just do it as much as they want without any regard. But it isn't faceless. You are actually hurting somebody out there. And then collectively, if there's more people doing it on top of that person, you don't know if that one comment that you said might have been the thing that pushed them over the edge. And for what? For what?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's still people out there engaging in zero sum, that they think that the more they squash other people, the more it elevates them. And I've been a huge proponent of win-win solutions. And one of the things that I do in terms of trying to address conflict up front in my business, I tell people two things. One, when we're talking about pricing, I say we have to agree on what's fair, because what's fair is in everyone's best interest. And so we need to have an agreement about what's fair in terms of pricing. And then with that preamble, I've never had the conversation go badly after that preamble. I've never had anybody argue with me that, fair isn't in everyone's best interest.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is I make people promise. I said, if through the course of us working together, if there's anything that you're unhappy about or you think isn't right for any reason, or if circumstances change, will you promise to bring it to my attention? Because I'm much better at addressing problems I know about than problems I don't know about. And they said, well, yeah, sure. You know what I mean? It's easy to say that now, right? But then when you get into it, then they remember, it's like, oh yeah, no, I committed to addressing this. Mm-hmm. And then if something does come up and they address it, I say, before we address the problem, the first thing I want to tell you is thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
I appreciate the fact that you brought it to my attention, and I'm grateful for that. And I honor that. Now let's address the issue.
Because there's a whole other group of people that are programmed not to say anything, and that creates this stuck energy in their body.
Yeah.
They can feel it. It lives here in the mind, and then it lives in the heart, and then it gets stuck somewhere between the vocalizing of it. And so it's like really stuck energy around here. I do a lot of energy work and healing, and I've honestly seen people that I've worked on where that throat chakra and that whole energy in here is completely blown apart, it's constantly stuck. And those are the people that get a lot of sore throats. They actually will manifest that stuck energy, will manifest. They're always having throat cultures done and things like that. And there is a physical response to, meditating and healthy living and spiritually. And for me, people who don't believe me, but I'm rarely sick, rarely. And if I get sick, I'm only sick for 2 or 3 hours. My body processes anything that comes in so fast. And it's quite unbelievable, but I do think it has a lot to do with that. I've combined my mind, body, spirit, and soul is into one unit now. For the most part, I have times when I'm panicking and it'll fly away, but but that practice. So now they've got the support. My physical body has the support of my, everything else. So when an illness comes into my physical space, everything is so aligned that it attacks it right away. And I believe that spirit can help do that, because, I haven't been probably sick in 5, 6, 7 years. And if I am, it's maybe a couple hours, and it's unheard of. I just don't get colds. I don't get flus.
I'm similar to you. Occasionally something will happen where I've really resisted some learning and some growth.
Yeah.
And it'll hit me. And a couple of years ago, I hurt my back, and they did an MRI, and they said, you need to have surgery. I said, I'm not doing that, because that's not this is a manifestation. This is a manifestation, an effect of the problem. The problem is that, in this particular case, I was looking for a connection outside of myself too much.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I realized that, I started to heal, and and I was back on the tennis court again.
Good for you.
But yeah, no, I completely subscribe to the concept that we create our own disease and we create our own healing, and it's all a matter of alignment.
Yeah, it helps too. spirituality seems to be the last line of defense. And if you look back, 200 or more years, as humanity, we put spirit first, regardless of what title you wrapped it in, whether it was Native American or different things. But we prayed, or we looked at more light. We prayed over our food. We were grateful. It was a different thing. Now spirituality it's in the last thing. It's like money, this, that, work, job, career, family, folk. Spirituality is usually the last. So I mean, it's kind of, I mean, it is in humanity. So if we come back and bring spirituality or prayer, or just, even if you don't like the word spirituality or prayer, just like awareness, we would be a different culture today, I think.
Yeah. And, there are a lot of people on the planet, right? So there's a lot of people populating each perspective.
Yeah.
So while people with a spiritual orientation may not be the vast majority of the folks running the show, we do exist, and there are a bunch of us, and, and part of the challenge that I experience is communicating that effectively to people, and that I don't have anybody that disagrees with the idea that most of, if not all of what we do because we feel it's going to increase our experience of love, joy, and peace in some way.
Yep. I mean, love is awesome.
So the idea then is that, okay, what's cause and what's effect here? And that's where, if people get desperate enough, they'll open themselves to a solution, because I like to use Howard Hughes as a solution when people think that money is going to solve all your problems. I said, well, Howard Hughes was the richest guy in the world in his day, and locked by himself in a hotel room in Las Vegas with blackout curtains, collecting his urine in a bottle, really wasn't, a great time for him. So and he was the richest guy in the world. So I mean, it didn't solve his problems.
No, I mean, to me, money is energy. It's really, I mean, it has to have a physical manifestation, but it's actually energy. And and even spiritually, spirit wants you to, if you want a lot of money, spirit wants you to have that too. I mean, it doesn't really care. What it cares about is your intentions and what you're putting out in the world. And the reality is that we all just want to be loved, because every good movie is about love. Every great song is about love. We all really want love. So why don't we love more? Why can't we put that first? Always try to, as much as possible. That's where I think we need it. We have to put it out there more. That's what everybody needs and wants. So how come everything else comes out first? Come out with love first. I mean, let's love more.
Everybody I come into contact with, I tell them, share your story.
Yeah.
Right? Share your stories, because that's what people relate to. And I'm always looking for a win-win solution. And I recently discovered one and put it into practice. And it's just been the greatest thing for me and my wife. And it's been,
good.
And the other people involved, and everybody is just like, God, I feel so blessed. Oh, this is so great that this happened. And, and everybody's just so excited about it and happy. And it's going to just solve problems in every direction for us. And it's just like the biggest thing, And so I'm, so people say, well, how you doing? I say, I'm ecstatic. I've created this win-win solution. And I did it by acting on thoughts that were imbued with love and warmth. And I trusted that. And then as I was sharing those thoughts, like more ideas came to me, and to flesh out how it was going to be good for everybody. And we're just moving forward, and I'm still discovering more and more pieces of this that are of tremendous benefit that I hadn't even imagined. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, am I glad that I listened to the fact that there was love connected with this idea. And because of that, I chose to act on that idea. And it's created like all of this.
That sounds like fun, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well,
we're all curious.
It's the I don't want to divulge people's confidences, so I'm not
of course.
going to put in like super great detail. And you know, what I may do is I may ask them if it's okay for me to do that, because
Sure.
I want to tell the story and I want to flesh out the story, because stories inspire people, right? As stories that say, well, you know, like if that idiot can do it, I can certainly do it, right? So
Yeah,
you know, but I want to get people's permission before I do that.
I got it. I mean, I actually, I just want to bring up my book really quick because it came out a couple weeks ago called Surviving Suicidal Ideation. Here's the cover. And I actually did all the art in the book as well. And
Oh,
I actually used a lot of my personal story about different things that made me feel unworthy of love. And the publisher wanted those stories in there. And I just was like, okay. And they wanted more. And so I didn't really like talking about all my personal stories because it wasn't, I didn't want to make it about me, but that's what they said too, is why I'm bringing it up. They said people need to identify with your story and maybe how you got to the place where, you know, and why, you know, you felt unworthy. And, you know, I had childhood abuse, and I detail it in my book. And what happened is as an adult, you get life skills when you, and a lot of us have childhood wounds. I mean, I really haven't met anyone that doesn't have childhood wounds. So that's why I always go back to the childhood healing. But you know, what happens is when you're a child and you need to, you know, create ways to survive, those are great things. You survived it. But what happens is when you get older and you take those same skills with you, they're destructive as adults. And you don't think about it because it's who you are now, you know, and it isn't a quick little fix. And then what happens is you realize that you're pulling in other wounded people. Now you're just wounded person hurting a wounded person, you know, wounding each other. And you all have different things hurting each other and just trying to survive. And when you stop and really look at each thing, and start to unpack it and put love around it and work on healing it, it might take forever, it might take decades, or it might take a little bit, but you have awareness about it, because then you can say, oh, that I'm triggered because of that wound I have. And it doesn't feel so personal. Like I'm a POS, I'm a terrible person, nobody loves me. You can go, oh, it's that thing that yeah. So
one of the things that I teach is that we all have thoughts in our mind, and we need to learn that two things. One, some of those thoughts are accurate and some of those thoughts are inaccurate. And that we have the ability to choose which ones we label as accurate and which ones we label as inaccurate, and choose which thoughts we're going to act on and which thoughts we're not, right? So when I walked in on my first wife in bed with another guy, I had the thought that, you know, I've been in martial arts for 10 years. I could easily kill both of them. And actually what I want to do. So that was my first thought.
Yeah.
My second thought before I acted
Sorry,
on
I'm laughing,
thought
but
was, if I do that, I'm likely going to go to prison.
yeah, and that was a terrible place.
And so I decided not to act on my first thought. And I left and made an appointment with the attorney. So, but my point is that once we recognize that thoughts drive our behavior, and that those thoughts may or may not be accurate and may or may not be beneficial for us to act on, and we get to choose what we deem as accurate and what we deem as being worthy of acting on, then we have a freedom we didn't have before.
So are you now looking back in reflection, do you see that that lesson was good for you, or that you're happy that that person is not in your life because it revealed something? I'm just wondering, like, those moments are to me very big cataclysmic life events that teach us something. And I'm just very curious because you brought it up. But like, what, you know, are you glad that that happened? Did it
Oh
show
God,
you
yeah. I
the
mean,
side of something?
some of what I learned from that experience, okay, is one, she really wanted to get married, and I said, well, and I had the attitude that, well, I want to lead a spiritually oriented life, and we get along okay, and she really wants it, so okay. And so I realized that that was going to be that was not going to make for a successful marriage, number one. And once I realized that, I was already married, but I had given my word, and I was a person where, in my world, when you gave your word, you kept your word, and if it cost you your life, it's too bad. So another thing that I learned was that keeping my word is a good thing, except when keeping my word hurts everyone.
Mm.
And
I
the
agree, because you can change your mind.
and the
That doesn't
case,
mean you're not, yes, something
and the
that served
case,
you a while ago might not serve you now.
right, and the cases where keeping my word hurts everyone are few and far between. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a rare occurrence, right? But it can happen. So I learned that, and then the last thing that I learned from that was I said, well, I decided on an intellectual level to get married, with this rational thought that I'm going to pursue a spiritual life anyway, and we get along. So that's what she wants. Okay. Right. And I realized that for me to have a successful marriage, that I really needed to love the person I was marrying.
Oh, yeah.
And and that nothing, and there was just not absolutely going to work. Not only do I need to love, but I needed to have tremendous respect. Because one of the things that I realized in my first marriage is that I could make the marriage work. I could have made the first marriage work if I had valued it enough to put in the effort.
Hmm.
But I didn't value her enough to put in the effort. With my wife, and we've been married 37 years now, I never questioned. I mean, and we've had our ups and downs, don't get me wrong, right? And I mean, and I'm fire and she's fire and there are explosions. So, but my point is that it's always worth it to me. I'll dig deeper. I'll find a way. I'll grow. I'll change. I'll do something to reach deeper within myself to get more strength to find a way to make this work.
Oh,
Because
I like hearing men that talk like that.
because
Thank you
she's
so much.
because she's worth the effort where my first wife wasn't.
Mm.
And I tell Carla, I says, I never met anybody like you. You're the most amazing person I've ever met. I mean, I, words escape me, so.
I'm happy for you guys. That sounds like a beautiful love story.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I say, it's got its ups and downs, and
They all do.
different problems. I don't want to make it sound like, it's all just smooth sailing. It's not, but it's worth it, right? And my
Yeah.
life is like so much better because of it,
Mm.
and I'm happy, and with all of her difficulties and stuff, because she's not well and hasn't been for a while.
Mm.
I tell her, I says, if I had known that this was going to happen and stuff, and we were going to have these challenges and these problems and stuff, I said, I married you anyway. I said,
Mm.
this would not have dissuaded me from wanting to spend my life with you. And
Oh.
it's as much now as before, even with, all of our problems.
Well, thank you, Carla. I'm gonna send her a big, giant golden sun of happy energy.
So yeah, but it's so yeah, so I mean, you asked, that's a lot of what I learned, from my first divorce. And even as I was getting divorced, initially I said, I want to get remarried. I like being married. I just need to marry the right person.
Correct. You never know, though.
Well,
Every person that comes in our life teaches us something.
yeah. I mean, there's things, but one of the things that I've found to be true over the years is that when I get a thought that is accompanied by this deep congruence, right? We talked about alignment earlier, where there's just complete and total alignment with no doubt or anything, then that idea has always proven to be accurate and worthy of being acted on.
Yeah.
And that is certainly how I felt, in marrying Carla.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's well, I think that one thing I want to circle back to is the value of telling stories. I was doing a graduation speech at the California Conservation Corps, I guess. It's the fire department program for at-risk high school youth.
Okay.
And in my speech, I made the point that of requesting all of the parents and friends that were there supporting their graduates, make a point of asking them, tell me the story of when you made the critical decision that resulted in you being here today, rather than the people that you were hanging out with who are otherwise in prison or dead. Because you need to take you need to help them take ownership of the strength and the power that they had in making that decision that got them off the street and out of jail and into being a high school graduate with a potential job at the fire department. Because I said, this isn't the last challenge they're going to face, and they need to know that they have that power and that skill, and they've employed it effectively so that they can continue to build on that as they go forward with bigger challenges to come. And I just really wanted to support people understanding and accepting their own story and their own strength and take ownership of it. So it's like, if you have a tool, but you don't know you have the tool, you won't use it for your benefit. But if you have a tool and you know you have the tool and you know how to use it for your benefit, then you'll use it. And that was kind of my idea. And so I'm always encouraging people to tell their stories.
I also, my note on that is, children mimic adults. And if we are not good adults, we're not going to have good children. And that's why I'm going back to the online thing, because online bullying is being done by a lot of adults.
Really?
Yes, all the time. I get it.
I'm ignorant. I'm not part of that world. I'm not in.
No, and it's terrible. And they're bullies, and they're full adults with full house full of children. And
really?
oh yeah, all the time. Especially politically. So if you don't believe, people are righteous. If you don't believe exactly the way that I see things, then they come after you, and these are people that have children at home, and then when they see our children, the fastest growing age range is 10 to 14, like I said, for suicide. I blame the adults, and it's a community, and that, to me, that is the story. It's like adults need to be better adults, even if you don't have children. Putting out into the world, kids see this, kids will mimic us. The reason why kids are killing themselves and dying is the content they're watching, and they're watching adults, how adults treat other adults. And every adult needs to be responsible for what their energy and what they're putting out in the world, and realizing it's affecting everyone around them. Now, if you don't care about other adults, please tell me you care about the children. So, if you're like, I don't like that group of people, I don't like that group of politics, I don't like that, and you think of them as adults, but think of them as children or their children, because that's actually who we're hurting in the end. And if we don't start to really get that, we really need to get that. So don't, the adults are what's bringing up the next children, and we're teaching them how to be cruel online. We're teaching them, the adults are teaching them those things. So do it for your children or other people's children, is constantly watching what you put out into the world, especially on a social platform. It's become a cruel world on socially right now. And then especially until before and after elections is over, it's going to be a time. That's why I bring it up during these times, because I can see it's going to get really bad. And, we really have to everybody has to comment on it, I think, right now, and say, let's not be a part of that.
Yeah, and taking it one step further, and I always wonder to what extent, I can communicate this effectively, but what we do to other people, we do to ourselves.
Yeah.
So if we're mean to other people, we're being mean to ourselves in some form, right? And once a person understands and relates to that, you don't want to treat anybody badly ever again because that's how I'm treating myself, right? So if I am kind and wonderful to other people, then that's, I mean, one of the probably, if not the most impactful spiritual concept, one of them is that we create with the focus of our attention.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm paying attention to win-win solutions and loving and finding common ground and communicating all of that, if that's what I'm paying attention to, and that's what my books are all about. I mean, one of them is transitioning from zero sum to win-win thinking.
Okay.
You know, and if you accept the idea that we're all one, then zero sum thinking is a faulty concept. Either we're all being lifted up or we're all being torn down. But if we're all one, then we all rise and fall together. But so, you know, understand that what we focus on becomes a bigger part of our life. So if we're focusing on being angry, running other people down, trashing other people, then we're increasing that in our life.
It's true.
And so at every opportunity, I try and communicate that to people that, you know, you can look at unified. I mean, Einstein was working on it. Christ was working on it. There isn't a mystic worth their salt that doesn't make an attempt to communicate in some fashion that we're all one. And part of what that means is what we do to anybody else, we're doing to ourselves. And so be kind, because
Yes, please.
be kind, because you know that you are, when you're being kind, you're focusing on kindness, and what you focus on grows in the world and in your world.
Mm.
If you want kindness to grow in your world, then be kind.
Yep. Absolutely. And if you can't figure it out, then that's why I say, then think about the children that you're affecting. If you can't, you know, if you're too stubborn or righteous or in your own mind or have programming that can't break that down, think of the children that, you know what I mean? Sometimes you need to think of something other than you.
Absolutely. Do whatever step you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and that's kind of where, you know, in my meditation, I've come to realize that there are all kinds of different perspectives and energy level associated with each of those perspectives. And that in any given circumstance, you know, there's a certain perspective that's going to be effective. You know, and so you have to kind of, I've got a whole sort of methodology around allowing the optimal perspective to be employed at the optimal time in the optimal way.
Wonderful.
Because, you know, I mean, sometimes you can say something to somebody and they just kind of go like, huh? Yeah, and it's like, well, you know, you haven't really connected with them then, you know?
Well, that happens to me every day. So, and that's why I laugh so much, because it's like, I mean, even though I'm dealing with usually a very serious topic, I still try to bring levity towards it. But in my own self, I'm very light in general, just because that's where my healing has taken me. So I'm actually trying to get out as much information about the suicidal healing, because my memories of it are starting to fade to the point where I can't tap into that energy anymore. So it's sort of like I'm trying to hurry up because I want to be authentic in my expression, and like I understand how you feel, but it's becoming harder and harder to understand it, because it's almost like I'm a different person. I'm kind of living another life, and those memories are really starting to fade. And I'm glad for me, because they're horrible memories.
Yeah, sure. But I think there's a time and a place for everything, right? So as you grow out of that, right, as that becomes, as you've made your peace and let go of that and the charge is gone, there'll be new challenges.
Yeah.
There'll be,
Every day.
you know, I mean, there'll be,
I think actually becoming friends with conflicts and challenges is really great for us, because they come I think I get at least one challenge a day, big or small. And that life is about making decisions constantly. I don't know what the number, and I've heard this before, but we make decisions all day long. So, the art of making decisions is a beautiful thing, in a timely manner that is, yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think they need to teach this to kids in school about conflict resolutions and how to make decisions.
Well, in some schools, they are teaching meditation, which really helps people be mindful, and mindful people do make better decisions.
They do.
They do, and so it's trying to find its way into the education system. I'm sure there's a lot of resistance. Well, I know there's a lot of resistance to it because it hasn't been spreading like wildfire like it probably should.
Yep.
And it's it's the ability to communicate, right? It's the ability to communicate a win-win solution to people, right? Because people, it's like the weapons manufacturers feel that they're out of business if there isn't a war to use their weapons, right? But what in fact happened is when there was the peace dividend, when the USSR broke up, is that so many of those engineers that were working in weaponry in the military industrial complex were refocused and created the tech boom. And they wound up using all of their talents in a much more beneficial way for society. And they were better off and ended up making a whole lot more money.
Wow.
And so you have to open our minds to the idea that just because you think a shift in society might disenfranchise you, that's not necessarily so. And that's kind of one, part of what I'm trying to say is that, if people have that alignment that you talked about earlier, right, that the cost of healthcare would drop from 18% of the gross domestic product to far less. But a lot of people wouldn't be collecting as much money because people wouldn't have to spend as much money on healthcare because they'd be healthier.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, in the drug company say, well, that's bad. And I go, well, no, because you have expertise that you could employ elsewhere. And instead of charging a fortune to mitigate symptoms and ignoring the cause, people would gladly pay more to resolve the cause and the symptoms than just mitigate the symptoms. And you have that expertise, and you could rechannel that expertise and actually earn more money selling a solution rather than mitigating effects. And I mean, and it's like I'm always trying to look to see who would think that they're going to be disenfranchised, like all of those engineers that went and created the tech boom.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's, so I'm about, so that to me is like a spiritual principle made practical, right? Is that there's everybody's talent is needed. There's a place for everybody. Everybody's path is unique, and everybody's story is unique, and there's a place for everybody. And the more that we can help people find their own place, the better off we're all going to be.
Definitely, I agree with you.
So, so I mean, I've given a speech on, the common ground between pro-life and pro-choice. I've given, and I've explained to people, I mean, these, this is the fact. You guys could combine forces, because by definition, no one wants an unwanted pregnancy, right? An unwanted pregnancy by definition is unwanted. Nobody wants that. So, and the fact is whether abortion is legal or not, if someone's committed to it, they're gonna get it one way, legally or not, they're gonna get it. So if what you really want to do is reduce abortions, then what you need to do is combine your forces to help people not have unwanted pregnancies. And by definition, no one wants an unwanted pregnancy. So it's like, but people should be out there in the airwaves saying that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I did another podcast I recorded was authoritarianism versus capitalism, and what they each have to offer, and the state of consciousness that is appropriate for you know, each way of doing things, right? So, I mean, some people need to be in jail for their own benefit, right? I mean, some people need a level of structure that is really high.
Yeah.
So they don't hurt themselves and other people. And other people don't need laws at all because they're going to do the right thing, whether there's a law about it or not, right? And then there's a whole bunch of people in between. Anyway,
Yes.
so anyway, that was, this has been wonderful. I would, I'd like to be a guest on your podcast. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to continue our conversation, you know, and see where it leads.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me today. I wish you so many blessings. I wish you well and look forward to talking to you again. And you can find me at theliberatedhealer.com or ginacavalier.com. That's where all my artwork is. And this is my book, Surviving Suicidal Ideation. That's out now on Amazon and everywhere. And excited about that.
Yeah, and folks, this is somebody worth supporting. She is
Thank you.
out there giving the world what it needs. So lend whatever support you can to her. She's on the right side of things.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you.
All right, same here. All right, well, listen, it's been a pleasure, and I'll look forward to getting together with you in the next venue.
Okay. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Take care.